Okay, hello everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome back. Good morning, Ted.
Good morning. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Well, Ted, we've talked about a lot of stuff this year and a lot of topics. And, I think now that I'm just thinking of this, a common theme with everything is it all starts with you, right? And everything that we've tried to talk about has come back to you, yourself, when I'm talking about you listening. And so I think as well, like we want to touch on now, like wrapped up the year and start a new year and talk about, 8 pillars of wellness. And don't you feel like wellness or whatever is happening within reflects on the world and everything around you? So it is how it is everything, right?
Yeah. I just think it's a good time to slow down, right? And we've used that language on many topics that we covered, but it's the end of the year and the beginning of the year. New Year's resolutions and all these things. But the 8 pillars of wellness, really, it'll touch on a lot of the stuff that we've touched on throughout the year. I can't believe we've done 48 of these things.
Yeah.
So it's not about throwing a bunch of new thoughts or content at people as much as reflecting back on the year, reflecting on. And I think what you just said there is something that I've told leaders and people in all my years of coaching, that this journey is about self as much as it is anything else. And so as much as you're learning about writing, as you're trying to dabble out there and get new clients and having high days and low days and frustrations and wins and all the rest of this journey really comes back to self. And just a way to look at self is these 8 pillars of wellness, right? It's a way to just, narrow the focus, because a lot of times wellness is a big thing. Or when you say self, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I think if we just focused on 2, right, for the next 3 to 4 weeks, we could cover the 8 pillars of wellness, get people focused, reflecting on them, and then also making some goals around them.
I was going to say, because that is another thing that I learned from you about everything and about this. You can't do it all at once, right? Like you can't improve all 8 pillars all in one shot. So I think break it up like this. And if everybody listening can make these 2 the focus of their week and move through them like that, I think that's perfect.
That's it. 2 a week for the next 4 weeks. Put some focus on them, make some goals around them, reflect on them, reflect first, then make some goals. And I think it'll be a good way to end the year. And some of it, quite frankly, will touch on a lot of the themes that we've talked about, which I'm good with, right? Like you've heard me say for years and years and years, I'm unapologetically redundant because it's good to like rehash and bring some things up again. So let's just jump in, and then you'll throw some flavor onto the first 2. The first pillar of wellness is relationships. And now this is timely in the sense that I think it was just a couple episodes we were talking about community, right? And really going out and building relationships. And you and I had discussed not only building relationships with like-minded people, but also building relationships with people that, do not think like you or have different skill sets with you, but also leaning into relationships with people that are absolutely in your same space, maybe right in the same niche or whatever it may be. So we've touched on a lot of that, but I think what I want people reflecting on is the levels of relationships that you have, and I think the most successful business people, and quite frankly, the most fulfilled human beings, are ones that bring relationships down a level. I could say up a level, down a level, deeper.
I go deeper, basically.
Yeah, deeper. And so, you could keep relationships at, as you've heard me frame it up as a level 1 relationship. And those relationships would really just be, you get along great, surface level things about each other. Like I may know you're married and have 2 kids, and, where you live in Carolina, like these certain things. But do I know your story? Do I know your insecurities? Do I know things about you? Do I know your vision? Right? Like, do I know those things? And that's really what I want people reflecting on. Are you taking through curiosity? There's 2 things that I want people to focus on this relationships. The first is curiosity, and that would be you getting ultra curious about the people that you're encountering or the people that you're trying to do business with. And so you could choose, hey, how are you doing, Jade? I'm doing good. You could choose to leave it there. Or you could just ask a next layer question, which could be as simple as, well, tell me what's good then. 1 or 2 things are going to happen then. You're going to either find information about them, about things that are very good in their world, or you're going to see the person quickly pivot, because good is not really the truth. They'll go, well, things aren't so good. I got a lot going on over here. I got a family member that's sick and all that. And all of a sudden, that level of relationship is inching its way deeper. because now you have, outside of that surface level answers and stuff, you're getting there. And so I want you to be thinking about getting curious with people. And then the second part about building deeper relationships is your own ability to be proactive in sharing. So again, I'm going to use the same example. You could ask me, how are you doing, Ted? And I could simply say, good. Or I could choose to tell you what is specifically going really well and what I'm struggling with or working on. And all of a sudden, the conversations, you will be amazed that the conversations open up, because, I mean, full transparency, I just shared with Jade before we talked here that, you know, my father-in-law is having kidney transplant surgery in 2 days. And Jade shared with me that she has a friend that doctors who, the conversation started going. Now, we could have kept on going, but we had to jump on here. And so again, this idea of relationships as a pillar of wellness, the reason it's under wellness is because relationships, human connection, is one of the basic 4 needs. We touched on that a couple of weeks ago. So the only other thing that I want you to focus on under the relationship pillar as it relates to wellness is there are relationships in your life that you're putting a lot of energy towards that you should not be. Because they don't fulfill you, or because they don't serve a purpose, right? And it may be ego driven on your end, meaning that you feel like you have to, and you're so upset because the person doesn't align with the way you think. So you're going to make this fit. Stop. Right. So I want you to think about this idea of relationships, both in the way that we've talked about it before in building community, but also leveling up the relationships, taking them deeper through curiosity and your own being proactive. And the other thing that I'd say about being proactive and sharing of yourself is do not be afraid to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be Superman or Superwoman every time somebody talks to you.
It's funny as well, Ted, while you were talking, I was just thinking of my own relationship journey this last year. And I think, you know, as adults, we desire to have a romantic partner, and there's a lot of energy put into that, into acquiring that and finding that or whatever. And then there's the business part, you know, like with who we're talking to now, these writers looking for clients. And I realized that I had like the friendship bucket lacking, and actively like put out there the desire to find like just a couple people in my community that I can connect with, that I can raise my daughter with, because we don't have a lot of family around, right? And it was funny because I'm not a super, even though I can do these, open person. I don't talk to the person next to me on the airplane. That's just like, you know, I like very closed off like that. But it implored me to be open and chat to people at the playground and make friends with my daughter's, you know, people at the ballet classes and things like that, and open it up so that I would also have people analyze that, and not, if there is a certain relationship that is lacking in your life, don't think just because you're an adult or whatever that you can't pursue that again now. And then I think another third level, so I think there's relationships with others, there's like the deepness that you go with others, and then there's what all these pillars of wellness are about, and it's a relationship with yourself, right? I think that's a huge layer of relationship. Like, how are you talking to yourself? How are you treating yourself? How do you look after yourself? Like, that is, like we were talking about in the opening, super cool. And then I love what you said at the end, Ted, about like the holding on to relationships, because I think that we feel such guilt to let go of people that are no longer serving us, a lot of times because they're family members, or other times because there's history, right? Like, I went to college with them, and we had so much fun together, and we grew up together, but like all those reasons. And it's like, yeah, but what about right now? You know, like, it doesn't.
Oh, that's an interesting one. That history one. I often tell people when they're struggling with that, look, at this stage in the game, the only thing you have in common is the past.
Yes.
And you have to realize that you both have grown and evolved in different ways. That doesn't mean that just because you were good buddies in college means it's a fit now.
And what is the conversation like? Because I've talked to some friends about this. I have one friend in particular who, she has such a hard time with this. And I'm like, when you're with them, are you still just rehashing, like, no, not in a bad way, but just talking about what we did and or are you creating new lasting relationship memories with them right now in the present, right? And I think that's where it's very telling whether it's still suiting you or not. Yeah.
Well, let's move on in the essence of time on pillar number 2, which is mental, which is the whole mindset piece. It's mental, just what are you thinking? right? And I've talked about, just to refresh everybody, earlier in the year, I talked about the Stockdale paradox, this idea that you can be overly negative or overly positive. And research has shown that neither one of those are the best places to stay in consistently and really thinking realistic, right? And this is just, I want everybody to check, what are you thinking going into 2023? Are you thinking like, hey, I'm going to knock this out of the park and go make $300,000? Is that realistic? Or are you going in there dooming and glooming like this is going to be the worst year ever? Which, by the way, I have to say this, from my lens and coaching people in the thick of things every day, all day, there are a lot of people going into 23 really tired.
Yeah.
Right. And this pillar is critical. How are you viewing the world? And you just said it. How are you thinking of self? How are you thinking about the things going on around you? Are you turning on the news and looking at, look, there's no hope out there? Or are you being naive and thinking, I'm just going to glide through 23, everything's going to be fine, and not have the ability to pivot and see things as they are? And so this one's an important one of really just slowing down. Where are you mentally? Yeah. The whole mindset piece. And again, remember this, my personal opinion is sometimes people talk about mindset and they go directly to, you got to be this positive person all the time and always see things as rainbows and unicorns. And that's not the case as it relates to wellness. Yeah. As it relates to wellness. Wellness is about being rooted in levels of positivity, levels in appropriate expressions of negative emotions, but really starting to see things as they are, and then making life plans and business plans around what's in front of us, right? Mm-hmm. And not allowing our minds to create all these narratives and go over here, because remember, those mental thoughts, as the pillar is called, mental, those mental thoughts control our behaviors. 100%. And so this is just one of those, we just want to slow down and look at how are we viewing self? How are we viewing the world? How are we viewing all the things that are coming at us? Because there is still a lot of uncertainty, which seems like to be the biggest word that I'm coming across in my line of work. This idea of uncertainty going into 23 is a big one.
It's so funny. I've probably, again, you talk about being repetitive. I've probably said this in a former Jumpstart, but one of my favorite quotes is, the fire can either cook the food or burn down the house, right? And that's exactly what I think of when I think of the mental aspect. What you can do and to control that one can completely shift everything that is around you. Just like we were talking about before with the relationship with yourself, it can transform your entire life. Because yes, it's not to be unrealistic that something might be going bad, but your attitude towards it and focusing on what you can control around it is going to completely change yourself and the way you, and then nothing with us is ever cut, fine and dry, right? So like the way you are with yourself is also going to reflect into your relationships and the depth and the quality of those, and then everything else in your environment. So yeah, I think it's crucial.
So going into this week, just focused on two. And the first one could be very simple. Pick one person that you want to take the deeper relationship through curiosity and through your own proactive of sharing of self. So it could be as simple as next time somebody asks you in a conversation that allows it. It's not like you want to bare your soul to everybody that asks how you're doing. Right?
When you go to the checkout store and you just pour yourself.
Yeah, so pick one person, right? And level up through curiosity or proactive ones of sharing. And the mental, I say put pen to paper, right? And just say, like, how am I thinking? Like, write down some words that say, hey, I'm thinking negative thoughts here, I'm thinking positive thoughts here, and start planning out, what you need to do to pivot to get into a more realistic spot. Sometimes we spiral. So, and then next week, we'll get into the next two.
Okay, so pillars 3 and 4 coming at you next week. Ted, thank you so much, and we'll see everybody then.
All right.